Back at the farmhouse, I found Sophie and her mom preparing breakfast as I sat down at the kitchen table with her older brother. "How you doing, big guy? You sleep well?" I said to him. He gave me a cold stare, not saying a word in reply. "Don't mind him," Sophie's mom chimed in. "He's a quiet one. Always has been." "Strong and silent type," I said. "I like it." I turned back to him, but there was nothing behind his eyes. I raised a hand to give him a gentle wave, but he didn't move, just stayed stone still as he waited for breakfast. Sophie put down a plate of scrambled eggs in front of me, but I found them just as unpalatable as last night's meal. I tried to fill up with the toast that was stacked up on the table, but even that stuff I had to force down. Yet, what I found deeply disconcerting was that Sophie and her brother seemed to relish their meals, like they couldn't taste anything amiss with them at all. And it's not like Sophie didn't know good food. We'd have spent a lot of time in some of the finest restaurants in all of New England, probably the entire country. She was quite the connoisseur. I was barely finished eating before Sophie's dad poked his head into the kitchen.
"Enough rest. Beet fields, 5 minutes.
I cleared my plate, apologizing to Sophie's mom that my appetite must have been off, then trudged out of the beet field to meet her dad.
"This one should be easy, even for a city boy like you,"
he said, kneeling among rows of neatly planted greenery.
"You gotta get a good, firm grip of the leaves here, right at the stem, then twist and pull them out of the ground, see?"
He demonstrated his technique, and then left me to get on with the work. Basket in hand, I knelt down into the dirt, pulling up beets just like he'd shown me. I was exhausted, barely paying attention to what I was doing, until pulling one particular beet left a stain on my hand. I had to double check to make sure I hadn't accidentally cut myself on something. The texture and the color wasn't like anything I'd ever seen from a beetroot, even down to how sticky it felt when I rubbed the juice between my fingers.
"What are you staring at, boy?"
Mr. Norris scared the hell out of me, having crept out from God knows where. Are these things meant to leak like this?"
"Sometimes, when they're fresh, sure.
"But the color."
Best goddamn beets in the entire country. Not like the stuff that you find in the goddamn super duper markets."
"I mean, I suppose—"
"Enough talk,"
he said, picking up the full basket of beets before placing another empty one down in front of me.
"You're gonna pick another basketful, then you're gonna come help me with the corn."
He turned and walked away, muttering something under his breath as he did so. I picked my way along another row of beets, trying to keep my mind off how peculiar they seemed. But as he was so quick to remind me, I was just a city kid, out here where I didn't belong, working on something I was totally unfamiliar with. So who was I to question the quality of their produce? I just kept my mind on Sophie, and carried on with the task at hand. At around noon, I met Mr. Norris in the cornfield.
"You did alright with those beets. Now let's see you with the corn."
Again, he demonstrated the proper technique of tearing off the ears, tossing them in the basket before leaving me to do it. It was considerably easier than pulling beets, the repetitive motions of which had left a dull ache in my shoulder. But just like the beets, I noticed something rather strange about this produce too. The husk that coated the corn felt like old dry skin, the kind that forms on a cut or graze after it's scabbed over. But that wasn't what freaked me out. What had the hairs rising on my back of my neck was that I noticed something dark and black on one of the corn husks, in a very familiar shape. It appeared to be a faded black ink in the shape of a heart, one that looked just like an old tattoo. Just then, I heard a rustling in the cornfield behind me. "Mr. Norris, is that you?" I called out, but there was no reply. I turned, staring into the vast green ocean of tall green stalks before me. I took a few steps forward, trying to get a glimpse of whatever just made the noise, and felt my heart thump when I heard the same rustling, this time accompanied by swaying among the top of nearby corn stalks. Someone, or something, was definitely in there, just feet away from me, just out of sight. I moved along the rows with dreadful anticipation, when suddenly I saw them. A pair of black eyes staring back at me from the shadows. As soon as that thing's gaze met mine, it darted off through the cornfield in the opposite direction, grunting as it went. I had no idea what I just locked eyes with, but it was short and covered in thick, dark hair. For a few moments after that distinct rustling died down, a dreadful silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of a gruff voice coming from behind me.
You call for me, boy?
It was Mr. Norris, having almost frightened the life out of me for the second time that day. Jesus, I think I saw something in the field there.
Saw what?
I don't know exactly. I think it was a pig.
We don't keep pigs on the farm, boy. Only cows.
Well, it certainly looked like a pig. Only it was all covered in hair, this thick black...
Well, have been a wild hog. They break through the fences sometimes, eat up all our produce. It's not entirely a bad thing. I'll get the shotgun and head back out this field in the tonight. Might have some fresh meat on the table tomorrow.
Yeah, must be a real problem trying to keep interlopers at bay. We have the same problem down at the harbor, only it's not like we can use a shotgun to fit the situation. I laughed. He didn't. It was then that another thought came to mind, one that had a question attached. So, is all your stuff organic here, Mr. Norris?
Organic?
He threw the word back at me like it was another language. Yeah, like not using any nasty pesticides or anything like that. It had certainly explained why some of the produce was so... different.
We don't have that problem here on the farm, boy.
And that's when it hit me. It was high summer. There should have been flies, bees, aspids, insects of all varieties buzzing around the field. It dawned on me that I hadn't seen or heard a single one at that point any time that day. I was just about to ask him another question when Mr. Norris cut me off.
Now come on, we're just about done here. Let's head back to the house.
But I've barely feel the...
I won't tell you again, boy. Now, come on.
I spent the remainder of the afternoon with Sophie, hanging out down by a stream which ran through the property. Sitting in the grass and talking with her made me forget just how strange the whole day's event had seemed. And besides, getting up at 4:30 in the morning has a way of dulling your sense of perception. When I was with her, I didn't have a care in the world, and no amount of weird vegetables or cranky old farmers could change that. I don't think your dad likes me very much. That's just his way. He'll warm up to you in time. You just gotta prove yourself. Prove myself how? You just gotta show that you can be part of this family. And I'll be honest, this ain't gonna be easy. But you'll manage it. If you love me, you'll find a way to manage it. That was all I needed to hear. I did love her, more than I thought was ever possible. And in that moment, I was still prepared to do whatever it took to win her parents' approval. That evening, after another dinner in which I forced down more of Miss Norris's terrible cooking, I decided to get an early night so I'd be ready for more hard labor in the morning. Obviously, Sophie and I weren't sleeping in the same bed, so I wished her a good night and climbed the stairs to the guest room, where I fell asleep pretty much as soon as my head hit the pillow. However, just a few hours later, I found myself awakened by a rumbling in my stomach. For the second night running, Miss Norris's home cooking had not agreed with me. Only this time, I had to sneak off to the bathroom to empty my stomach as quietly as possible for fear of waking up the rest of the family. But not all of them were sleeping, as I heard voices coming from downstairs as I crept back across the landing. It was Mr. and Mrs. Norris, having some kind of hushed disagreement in the kitchen. "You can't go out there, Amos. You just can't," Miss Norris was pleading.
You know I have to. One of them got out today. Sophie's boy almost ran into it in the cornfield,"
implored her husband. "Can't you just leave them be? If it catches you out there before you see it, it'll..."
"Then I won't let it,"
Mr. Norris interjected.
"I've dealt with those things before. I can do it again."
"Oh God, Amos, but what if..."
"Listen to me, woman. If that thing escapes this farm, and the world outside finds out what we're doing here, it'll be the end of us. You know that."
I know, just please, I'm begging you. Be careful out there."
"I will."
I listened as Mr. Norris walked down the hall downstairs, hearing the distinct sound of him loading some kind of firearm as he walked. And as he walked out of the house into the night, I crept back into bed and lay there, knowing exactly what he was out there trying to hunt, but wondering just what the hell it really was. End of part 2. Thank you for watching my channel, She's Just Trying. If you like what you saw, make sure to hit the like and the subscribe button. I'm Hearts, stay safe, and bye.